Last weekend, I was in Chicago for the Two Brain Business Summit. It's the largest event of its kind, full of gym owners, coaches, speakers, the usual scene. It's an amazing place to connect, share, and just see some amazing people and learn a lot too. On the Sunday I was there, so I was there from Thursday to Sunday, but on Sunday I went out for lunch with a couple of other gym owners, one of them being a good friend of mine, Rickard Long from Sweden, owns a gym in Berlin, incredibly intelligent person, speaks 5 languages, I can barely speak one. And we just got talking about, what it is we're doing with our social medias, what our missions are. We just started talking about connecting with people and, ultimately what we want, like for our strategy and for who we want to be. And we were chatting away and, there's a few like discussions going on about best practices for Instagram, video, for email. Like we're talking all that kind of stuff, real nerdy stuff that you wouldn't probably care a whole lot about. But as we were chatting away, Rickard, out of nowhere, dropped a bomb and, said the thing that he's always found most interesting about me since we met in 2022 was how much I genuinely care for our staff and the team around me. And like he was like, you actually want them to succeed, and that genuine care shines through. And he was like, I'd love to know more of that story. Like, how did that form? And, in true Irish fashion, I probably went as red as a tomato and was like, hey, I just doing what anybody would do. I was trying to brush it off, just trying to do the polite, humble thing. But it did sit with me, and I actually was thinking about it like later on in the day as John Franklin was talking about impact and what we want to do and what we want to achieve with what it is we do. So I started asking myself the question, like, why do I care so much? My life would probably be easier if I had, less staff and less careers to be kind of taking onto my shoulders and trying to develop, right? And I was on the plane home and I couldn't sleep because I'm an awful sleeper. And I was really trying to think about it, and it actually took me a couple of days thinking about it. I knew I was maybe going to talk about it on the episode today because I realized that whether you're listening to this as a member or just as someone who knows me and is curious about my thoughts on the fitness world, that is something I champion, in both, in the gym in terms of trying to grow people and, invest in their careers, but also I do it in my mentoring job. I talk to other gym owners about empowering their staff and trying to build a team that succeeds, because if everybody is winning, then everybody's winning, including the gym owner, right? So I thought we'd dive into it a little bit today, and the answer isn't how great I am, surprisingly. Like everybody, I believe I'm formed through the experiences I've had throughout my life. And as I started to look back, I realized there's an awful lot of very important people who probably helped shape me into who I am today and why I care so passionately about trying to lift from the bottom up. Like the rising tide will raise all ships. If I can create sustainable careers and amazing coaches, well, then that benefits all of the clients because they get someone who's truly bought in and really cares about their success. And that coach is not worrying about putting food on the table. It's not having to worry about having 2 or 3 other jobs because, they need to be able to, have a normal life. They're just focused on coaching on the floor because that's what they do. They're professionals. That's their job. That's their profession. So I've always believed that. But then what Rickard said made me wonder, why do I believe that? And I guess this is partly for the version of me as I did all that introspection that I look back and I remember what it was like to be the coach before it was the gym owner. So anyway, with all of that big heavy intro out of the way, welcome back to the Wicklow Strength and Fitness podcast. It's me, it's Liam. I hope you are all doing great. So I suppose to kick this off, I'm gonna have to wind back quite a number of years. To when I was a coach at the gym, and just remember who that person was. And the reason I got into being a CrossFit coach in general was that I was the person who was a bit lost when it came to fitness. I'd played sports as a teenager. I'd gone to the gym on and off. Never really had like tremendous success with it, but I mean, I dabbled and the usual story. You go for a couple of months and then you disappear and then you have to start again and so on and so forth. And that was me until I found CrossFit, and CrossFit Wicklow in particular. And I kind of discovered that I love this thing. And the effects that it had on me, both body and mind, really shook me to my core. So then when I had the opportunity to become a coach and do that for, other people, I thought that was amazing. So I loved it, and I loved coaching, and I was doing so much of it. I was spending hours upon hours upon hours on the floor trying to do it. But the problem was I was just a coach trying to make a living from the thing that I loved, which in the fitness industry in Ireland, particularly back then, was almost impossible, I would say. The maths was brutal. Like, when I kind of started doing it full time, I was filling so many hours. I was coming in the morning to coach the 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. classes. I would do some admin work, some desk hours throughout the day. I might train myself in the afternoon, and then I'd be back coaching, doing like onboarding sessions or more classes in the evening. So I couldn't exchange any more time for more money. And you see, I think the problem was the way the gyms were built was that the industry just assumed that this was a side hustle for people. Or recent graduates, living at home with parents who would do it for a while until they got their quote unquote real job, right? And that's something that was always, even said, and it's probably still said to this day by people who are looking to get into the industry. It's like, when are you going to get a real job? So I remember that. There was no career structure, there was no progression, there was no security. It was just do this thing, coach these people, go home, and you're supposed to make your peace with the fact that it's altruistic. Like, you're doing a good thing for people. You're helping people be healthy. You're investing into their health, and you're making a difference in their lives. And that part is true, but at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to want to own your own house. You're going to want to be able to buy a car. You're going to want to be able to go on the holiday. You're going to want to be able to do all that stuff. And, despite its failings, my biggest issue was that I loved it. I loved it so much. And that was almost kind of cruel, because obviously I came from a business background, as I've spoke about before, and I was really just looking at it like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back to an office, and I couldn't resonate with that at the time, because I just really believed in what we were doing, and I genuinely thought I'd found something I wanted to do for the next 30 years, as long as I'm physically able, But the industry was telling me in euro and cents, it's just not here. It's just not available. So I suppose this is, as I'm thinking about it, I was the version of the person who was contemplating leaving and doing something else. And plenty of good coaches did. There are accountants, there are engineers, there are people in offices today who are probably had the potential to be the greatest coach of all time, who had amazing skill sets. And I actually met some of these people, and they're not in the industry anymore. And it's not because they weren't good enough. It's just that there wasn't space for them in the industry. The plan back then, for me, was simple. I always believed that if I were to ever run a gym, I would do it in a way where coaches could succeed and have a career instead of a side gig. It's not a stopgap. It's a genuine career. And look, we have people at the gym who it is a side thing, it is a part-time thing. And that's cool. I believe the full ecosystem needs that. You need people who can come in and they want to do it because they have just a passion for sharing and passion for coaching, but it's not their primary thing. Because that allows us then to have a primary team who are doing it full-time, who can work with these guys, and that allows us to have a really fully functional system. And I think that's very important. But it is built around the idea that we have professionals who kind of raise the standard and set the tone and do the admin and create the culture within it. So yeah, that's been the plan. And then obviously I got the opportunity to own a gym. So that's what I wanted to do. So thank God for the people who shaped who I was, because that's what we're going to start talking about now. And actually the first person, so I'm going to talk about three people who, as I was going through this process, I was thinking about who was the most influential to me in, trying to grow careers. And the first one is actually someone who had nothing to do with the fitness industry. His name is Simon Kendall. Some of you who know me closely might actually have heard me speak about him before. So I think he was my boss's boss's boss when I did a year's internship at Colgate Palmolive. Um, and what I remember uniquely about him was he was obviously so much above my station as an intern. However, I worked on a project with him once, and he was amazing. Like, he gave me a big shout out at this like company all hands where the whole team was there in Dublin, and there was people like watching on Zoom or around the world kind of on it as well. And he specifically highlighted me, the 20-year-old intern, and the work that I did on this project and how it had like changed stuff, right? Was it the work actually that amazing? I doubt it. I was a 20-year-old intern. It probably wasn't that amazing at all. But he made me feel important. He made me feel connected. And obviously I ultimately decided that that route wasn't for me in the corporate world. But if everybody was like Simon Kendall, I would never have left. He showed me that it's important to treat the person who's the lowest rung on the corporate ladder with almost maybe even more encouragement and more hype than you do for your top performers. He was genuinely kind, and like honestly, I still check in on his LinkedIn sometimes to see what he's doing. He's like currently like global vice president of, something very important at Colgate. So he's doing incredible. And I'm delighted to see that, because I'll never forget the kindness that he showed to a 20-year-old intern, and all the check-ins that we had along the way. And I think that really did help me be here. So he kind of reminded me, and I think it shows up every day in how I look at, whether it's Ben currently, who started training here as a teenager and is growing into an incredible human being. Whether it's through like Eddie and Connor, who started here as teenagers and who have grown into, grown from boys to men in an incredible fashion. And I'd like everybody, each one of those three kind of started as, juniors and shadowing and apprentices, and to see what they're doing now is, it's humbling and it's an amazing thing. And I don't think I'd have been as good at doing that and supporting that if it wasn't for Simon. So shout out to Simon Kendall. He's person number one. Person number two then is Chad Biddle. So Chad Biddle is the person who allowed me to become a coach in the first place. I was just somebody who was training in the gym. I was just somebody who was doing well. I was getting results and everything like that, but I wasn't a coach. I had no credentials whatsoever. And he obviously saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. I've always been confident in myself, but I was maybe at my lowest before I met him and before I found CrossFit, because I put on a lot of weight and I didn't really feel like myself. Some of you will resonate with that because of the results that you've achieved. But yeah, I didn't feel like myself, and I didn't feel great. And obviously CrossFit got me out of that, and he saw something in it where he thought I would make a great coach. At a time when I definitely did not see that myself. And the ironic thing is, I actually had Simon Kendall at the same time that I met Chad Biddle. And it was completely different. Obviously Simon's on the corporate end and amazing what he does. And then Chad was this amazing coach, this amazing CrossFit coach. And he knew I was a college student. I was going back to college. I didn't have the money to get any credentials. So, he paid for me to go do the CrossFit level 1. And then I repaid it by doing like classes and stuff like that, when it was very small and it was a team. But he very easily could have gone and got somebody who had some qualifications and trained them up. He could have easily gone and found somebody else. But no, he picked me, and then he became my coach in terms of my own ongoing development. He was writing my programming, but he was also helping me coach other people. He was always championing me to be the person. And ultimately, I would never have been a gym owner if Chad hadn't seen something in me back then that he thought I would make a great coach. If he didn't back me and if he didn't believe it was possible, then I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm definitely not sitting here talking to a camera trying to release a podcast. Or maybe I am, but maybe it's in a different industry altogether. So I think where I learned from that is what Chad did that was amazing was that he really, really tried to drive home that the group coaching aspect of fitness is never about the fittest person in the room. It's about getting around to everybody equally and making sure that everybody has a version of the workout that allows them to succeed, and that Mary getting her first ever, 60-second bar hang is just as important as Bob getting his first ever ring muscle up. There's just different sides of the same coin, and I think I've always tried to instill that into everybody else coming along. So that's person number 2. The third one is not just one person; it's kind of a category. It is what I found through like the Two Brain Network. It's the connectivity of meeting tremendous people like Rickard I mentioned at the start of this. But it all started with the CrossFit principal himself, as he goes by, Per Mattsson, the founder of Coaches Congress, former Two Brain mentor, who was the first person I ever got on a call with, because when I bought the gym was already signed up to be working with him. And full disclosure, I kind of came onto that call with my arms folded with a prove it attitude. I came onto that call fully ready to end the relationship with this kind of mentoring thing that, unfortunately, I may be blamed a little bit for certain things that we'd done wrong in the past. Because I believe it was like a plug and play system, and I didn't believe in that. I wanted to do it my way. And what Per kind of exposed me to in that moment was when he was listening to what I wanted to do at the gym. He wasn't trying to sell me on anything. He was just listening. And at the end, he was like, all right, cool. That sounds amazing. Let's do that. And like, he then started giving me like feedback on certain ideas, or mentioning other gyms around Europe and around the world who had done similar things or were trying to do similar things, and put me in touch with people and really helped steer me in a way. It was, bearing in mind this was during COVID as well, so I had a lot of time to work on what I wanted the gym to actually be. And that really helped too, because it was like, it exposed me to this network of people who were like-minded. And then that has obviously grown a lot in recent times. I ended up working for Two Brain. I work with the Tinker Group in Europe. I'm their coach, I'm their mentor. It's awesome. And that's given me access to an even wider network of amazing people who, to be honest, challenge me a lot. They push me hard, because to be in the room with such amazing people who are doing incredible things really challenges you to try to be better and to do the best thing that you can, and you want to feel like you earned your right to be in the room. So like, when I look at, and going back to what Rickard said originally about like, why do I care so much about the coaches and stuff, I think I built the gym around the idea of what those 3 kind of things gave me, Like, WSF is a gym on paper, but it's probably an experiment in my head, like, on whether or not you can run a gym the way I tried to do it from the outset, which was to grow the people around me and to really try and drive home that this is a long-term career. We pay coaches properly, we build them, we give them a career path, there's progression. I'm not saying it's perfect, I'm definitely not perfect, I still have work to do on it, but we try to make it possible for a coach at WSF to know that they don't need to worry about getting a second job. We still want them to be able to be a coach here in 10 years' time if that's what they want. If they see their long-term future and growth and development here, I want them to know that that is possible. That it's not a pie-in-the-sky dream like it was for me back in the day. And I think that's actually what Rickard was noticing. It's not that I care more than other gym owners. I think it's that I had a very specific reason to care. Because everybody cares. Every gym owner cares. I think I was just able to connect with the struggling coach, because I literally went from struggling coach to owner like overnight. So I think I was really able to resonate and connect with that person, because that person was me. And then through working with people and developing them and growing the pipeline and looking at the foundations of it, the newer, younger people coming in, I think I was just always able to resonate with the version of me. And also having to check myself and remember, that Yeah, it's easier for them now because I've built this thing. Yeah, it's that I wish I could have had that, but also promoting it, like not getting resentful of the fact that they have that pathway that I never had. And I suppose like I look at that as my role at Two Brain as a mentor is to really try and help gym owners instill something similar, to promote and be the voice for the young coach who's trying to make a career. And it doesn't mean that the young coach is always right, because I was definitely wrong and I definitely suggested wrong things back at the time. But if you lead people correctly, if you empower people correctly, I believe they will surprise you 10 times over at what they're capable of. And I think that's just been instilled in me for a long time. I believe in human beings, I believe in people, and I believe they will do their best if you give them your best. I'm a guy who's constantly trying to help because I have been helped along the way. I have had tremendous people put trust and time and effort and energy into me, and I kind of just view what I do now as paying that forward to another generation. By the time I'm 60 years old, I hope there's, thousands of lives that have been impacted because there's coaches who are now helping people on the floor and helping far more people than I ever could have on the time. You know, it's not altruism. Like, coaches who are looked after better, realistically, members are going to feel the difference, because the coach isn't going down onto the gym floor being like, well, Liam's an asshole. I hate working here. Why don't you go train somewhere else? And I'm not lying. That happens in gyms. I've heard the horror stories. That happens. And like, the business is better off running around people on the floor who have a stable income, a stable environment. They're growing professionally, they have aspirations, and that they're intending to stay, because that means that they are invested in the client's long-term results. Because if they're planning to be here for the long term, you can be damn well sure they're going to be preparing for the client to be here for the long term too. So that's the economic case. I believe that having a strong team of professional coaches will allow us to work with more people for longer, which obviously means the gym does better out of that, because we're not constantly chasing new people. But I think it also has the human case, right? Because they're going to be helping the people on the floor, which is our members, but it also helps the coaches. So it just means the entire culture is brought together around the important thing that we do, which is fitness and telling crappy jokes at the start of classes. Although I think I own the majority of those. So look, anyway, quick recap. I mean, if there even can be a recap for this brain dump, I suppose, that I've been doing and masquerading it as a podcast episode. Friend in Chicago noticed something about me that I hadn't really noticed about myself. The reason I care about the people I work with is because I needed a version of me to be able to do what they do. So I set about trying to create it. And the only reason I was able to do that is because other people have done it for me in my past. Other people have invested time in me. Other people have trusted me. Other people have gone out of their way to vouch for me in scenarios where they never had to. And I just think I'm paying it forward. I'm just investing into it. And I believe if I invest into the coaches, they're going to invest into the members. And listen, if you're a member listening, I hope maybe you feel more engaged. Maybe you think I'm an idiot. Maybe both. Who knows? If you're a gym owner listening to this who's wondering how you can ever do something like that, I mean, obviously you can. If I can do it, you can too. There's nothing special about me. We're trying to be the place that does not let people inside and slip through the cracks. And I just believe we need fully bought in and engaged people to do that. And to have fully bought in and engaged people, I need to be fully bought in and engaged in them. So that's pretty much all I got for you. If you're listening to this and you're wondering, should I become a member? I don't know if I did anything to help persuade you. Probably not. Probably the opposite. But if you are someone considering joining, obviously the door is always open. Come in, have a chat, meet the team. First step is the free consultation. If you're a member listening to this, I hope I gave you a bit of insight into your coaches, and why they do what they do and why we structure things the way we do. They're not just doing their job. They are the people I'm betting this whole damn thing on. I'm betting my reputation and future on. So they're going to do it because they're awesome. And I'll never forget that. Okay. All right. That's it. That's all I got. Okay. Genuinely happy to have a conversation and follow up on any of this, whether or not you are a member, a coach, or another gym owner or whatever. I guess that's partly the point, isn't it? This is always about opening conversation. So that is it for today. That is our episode. So thank you for joining. I will see you next week.